Last week we talked about Alexander Ovechkin being on the cusp of breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record in NHL history. Well, it has been done last Sunday, April 6th. He did it against the New York Islanders. It was a very cool moment. I got to watch it live. It was really cool, the ceremony, everything. A little funny bit about the whole ceremony was Wayne Gretzky was thanking the referees, and the whole stadium booed him, which was kind of funny. I didn't think hockey referees were that bad. I thought the NFL referees were the ones that were worst. Speaking of NFL referees, saw an article the other day that 3 referees actually got fired and another, I believe, got demoted. So the NFL doing some off-season work to make sure the referees are up to snuff. One of those referees was a ref that missed a call in a Chiefs game, and then in another game, and both of those calls or missed calls affected the outcome of the game. So glad to see the NFL is doing their due diligence. Welcome to episode number 4 now of Who's That Driver? I'm your host, Zach Rogers. Every week we get a guest on here to talk some racing, talk some NASCAR racing 2003 season, and any other sim racing that myself or the guest may have done over the years. And this week I'm very happy to have a longtime member of the NR community with me today. It's Joshua Moyers. Josh, how we doing today?
I'm doing all right. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. We've been racing together now for the last, I think, 3 years at Fast on Sundays for the most part. You had that great fuel battle there with Randall this past week at Chicagoland. I unfortunately got set out on a wrong strategy call after staying out on what ended up being the last yellow. But been a lot of fun racing with you on Sundays, and but you've been around much longer than 3 years.
Yeah, I literally bought the game the day it came out, and haven't raced, the entirety of the 20 years. I've taken some breaks here and there, but I would say probably altogether, 13 to 14 years, off and on. I've been racing NR 2003.
Okay, so was NR 2003 the first one you had, or did you have like 2002 or 4 or something else beforehand?
As far as the Papyrus games go, the only other one I had growing up was NASCAR Racing 2. Um, I was so young then. I never tried online or anything like that. It was just single player and championship mode and stuff like that. My first venture into actual online play that wasn't on a console was in R 2003.
Okay, how old were you when NR 2003 came out?
I would have been 15. I believe I turned 16 that year. So, um, but yeah, and to be honest, I wasn't even looking for it. My parents took me to GameStop, and it happened to be right there on the shelf, and I just got my allowance money, and um, they actually told me it was actually not supposed to come out for like another couple days, but they got it in early, so they went ahead and put it on the shelf. So I was one of the first people to even have my hands on the copy of it,
Wow.
um, which is really awesome. And um, got home and installed it, and did some single player stuff, and then I tried to go online, and the servers weren't even live yet. So
That's
had had
awesome.
had to yeah, I had to wait a couple days for that.
That's awesome to hear. They got it early, and you were able to like mess around with it before it was even supposed to go live. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So before we dive any deeper into NR, we just go over some motorsports type questions. What got you into motorsports? Who your first favorite driver was? Who it is now? I'm assuming it's changed since you're about 10 years older than me. And then what your favorite form of motorsports is too.
Okay. Well, you know, growing up, I be flipping channels and all that stuff and see a little bit of racing here and there. And I think when I first really started watching NASCAR was probably 93, but even then, I didn't really watch, I didn't know when a race was going to start and watch it all the way through. It'd just be like, oh, it's on, let's watch it. Um, in 1995, my dad's work sponsored a race car, and they gave him tickets to Bristol. And it was the fall of 95. That was the year that it rained for the cup race. So the cup race didn't start till it's probably about 8 o'clock. And early on, Earnhardt wrecked Rusty and got penalized and worked his way back up to the end. And that was where he got in contact there with Terry Labonte on the white flag, and Terry wrecked across the finish line. And at that point, I was just hooked. I was like, I become an Earnhardt fan, and that's who I rooted for up until his untimely death in 2001. Um, followed the sport. Probably, I say 97 was when I really started hunkering down and just watching it week after week after week. If we were having to go do something, I made sure to record it. Um, I would make sure not to miss a race, basically. Um, and of course, when Earnhardt died, I became a junior fan. When he eventually passed away, I wouldn't say I'm a hardcore fan of any one person now. Um, I do like the Hendrick guys. I like Blaney, um, but I don't have like a hardcore fan favorite that I follow anymore. I just love watching the sport. Um, but over the years, um, I have broadened. Like I love all forms of motorsports, whether it's Formula One or touring cars. Like I watched the British Touring Car Championship a ton in the late '90s. Uh, so Le Mans, WEC, IMSA. I mean, you name it. If it's got wheels and drivers are trying to pass each other on a racetrack, I'm probably going to watch it. So
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good stories about the BTCC, but it was something I never really got into just because I never saw it on or anything. But I'm in like a similar boat. I've told previous guests, like I've got a few different guys I root for, but now that MTJ's retired, I don't really have like a clear number one. I'm hoping Silich becomes as good as they're kind of touting him to be, because I've kind of picked him to be my new number one. I think he's guaranteed going to Cup next year. I think they're just giving him a year to mature in Xfinity, and he's had moments where he's like doing really good on the ovals. So he's just as good, if not better, than SVG on the road courses, and then he's just as great as like Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney on the ovals, and he's only 18. So I think with the right team and mentoring, I think he'll be a threat to beat in the next like 10 years or so.
yeah, he's definitely been really impressive. It's for how little experience he has on the ovals. The fact that he's running top five, top 10. I mean, he's qualifying in the top two or three every week, it seems now. And the more experience he gets, if he gets on a level like he is on the road courses, I mean, there's no stopping him. The sky's the limit for him. So it'll be really interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, and it would be something if the cars and Cup changed a little bit to where, it's not going to be as much parity. If they like can get the teams to kind of spread out again, whether that's tires or they give some horsepower back maybe down the line. It'd be cool to see him maybe be on a team that would pull ahead. Then you start seeing guys rack off 6 wins, 7 win seasons every year, and next thing you know, the guy's got 60 wins. Speaking of wins, Denny Hamlin just won at Darlington last week thanks to his pit crew. I was actually watching Actions Detrimental 2 weeks ago. They had a Bozy Tatarovic on, and he's like a pit crew guy in IMSA and stuff. But he was breaking down that Denny's pit crew, the Jackman's doing this move when he goes around, and it's saving them like 3/10 of a second. So it wasn't. It was kind of funny that it came down to a late race caution at Darlington, and then Denny was, I think, third at the time of yellow, and his pit crew got him the lead, and it was over after that.
Yeah.
So, Denny's at 56 wins now. I think he could get to 60 and tie Harvick. But then when you look down the list of active guys, like Joey and Brad are at 36, and then Larson just hit 30 like a month ago. Larson, I think, could hit 60, but he would really have to like start getting some good streaks going. I don't know if we'll really see too many guys get past 40 wins though if the car stays the way it is. I mean, you got just a lot of guys getting like 1 win this year, 2 wins this year. Like no one's really probably going to hit 40. But I think we will see like some outliers like Larson and so, they'll get to that 50 win mark if they get the right team behind them.
Yeah, definitely. I think with this next gen, it's definitely a lot harder to get those, uh, enormous win counts and whatnot. The last year before they went to the next gen, I guess that was Larson's first year, Hendrick, and he got what 10 or
Yeah,
11 wins that
10
year,
wins, 10 wins
and
in the championship. Yep.
you just try to think, had they not gone to the next gen, like how many wins would he be sitting at now? Because I mean,
I
it was every
think
week. It seemed like he had an opportunity to win.
yeah, and I think he actually even said, I think during an interview, I forget if it was before he won the 30th race this year or after, but I think he even said he was like, if we hadn't changed cars, I'd probably be already at 50 now. And I'm like, yeah, probably. I mean, if you had the last 3 years all be still with the old car, I mean, he probably would have been easily close to 50 by now, even if those were only like 7 win seasons. Like he could have easily been close to 50. Would he have had championships too? Like I don't know, but unfortunately, they changed the car. You're lucky to get a 5 win season right now in this car.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's been the previous week. Formula One just ended this morning. They were at Bahrain. It sounds like it was a pretty dramatic race. I heard Piastri won, and I think I heard Russell and Norris rounded out the podium. It sounds like Red Bull had a tough weekend. The pit crew stops were horrendous from what I saw. They had 4 second pit stops the first round, and then Max had like a 6 second pit stop on the second one. I don't even know where he finished, to be honest, but it wasn't on the podium, so I'm not really worried about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching it right before the podcast here. I think he ended up finishing sixth. Um, and I think Sonoda was eighth or ninth. But yeah, Red Bull they struggled mightily this weekend. You definitely saw the imperfections in the car, and they just were nowhere near the top this week. Piastri was in a league of his own. Norris at times had the same amount of speed, but he made a lot of mistakes, and he had a 5 second penalty for being over the box at the start of the race. Um, but uh, but yeah, there was a good battle at the end. He was trying to get Russell, and I think had there been another lap, he probably would have got a McLaren a 1-2 finish. But Russell did really good holding him off on those old soft tires.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I was doing other stuff, so I wasn't really able to watch it. And plus, I knew, right now I'm a Max fan, and I know Red Bull's not really like up to it right now. They're not at the top really. I think it's maybe going to be more of a McLaren year. So I'm not too big on watching them all the time. Plus, a lot of the races so far this year have been like in the middle of the night. Kind of hard hard to stay up for those right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said that you got the game 3 days early. The servers were not online quite yet, but when those servers did go online, did you utilize those for your first league race or just a first online race in general?
Yeah, for the first online race in general, like I really miss the old server days. It's like, you could log on there and there was literally hundreds of servers you could choose from. You had your open servers that just, had rotations of different tracks. You had your speedway stuff. You had open setup, fixed setup. You had leagues that would be doing recruitments, and having open servers, and they'd be watching and adminning. And if you did good, they'd be like, hey, try out our league. And that's ultimately how it was probably about 4 or 5 months after I started, um, I got recruited to a league. It was called the Alabama Gang.
Okay,
Um,
I feel like I've heard of that before.
yeah,
Or maybe
they
I'm
were
thinking of the
around.
NASCAR Alabama gang.
Right, right. So they were around for a few years, and when I joined them, they had pretty good car counts. They were getting about 20 people a night, and they had uh, I think Cup Series, Truck Series, and even maybe the Grand National. Of course, at the beginning, before the patch come out, all it was Cup. Um, but we had the patch come out a little bit later and some mods from Project Wildfire, and that's really when a lot of leagues started opening up and having more than one night of racing. Um, and so
So,
I joined them. Yeah,
so for the Alabama gang, I'm assuming that was the Cup mod, correct?
yes, it was the original Cup mod. Um, and starting out, I didn't have a steering wheel. I was a keyboard warrior, as they call it.
Okay.
Um, and but I ended up getting really good. Like I would struggle getting on and off pit road. That's where I would lose my time a lot. But I kind of learned over the course of the time, how to drive the car properly, and better yet, be able to save the tires. And I even got to a point to where I had different assist settings based on the type of track I was at, whether it was a bank track, short track, flat track. Um, and I had all kinds of different notes for different tracks. And it really, really upped my game once I kind of got that hunkered down. Um, and so uh, I say for the first 2 or 3 months racing with Alabama Gang, I was a midfielder, kind of get sniff a top five here and there. And then I broke out during the All Star race they had, funny enough. So everyone that had won was locked into the main show. Everyone that hadn't was in the open. And I dominated the open, got into the main show, and ended up winning it. Kind of felt like Michael Waltrip, basically.
Okay.
Um, and and from then on, I mean, I just got better and better. I stuck with them for a couple years. Ended up winning a championship there, um, and then their numbers started to struggle a little bit, so they merged with Team NORCA, um, and met a bunch of good guys over there. Big Daddy, Mr. Milk, um, just a couple others to name off, but had a good time there for a couple years. Uh, and ended up winning a championship there as well. And the following year, they changed the rules to make it hardcore mode because I guess they were tired of someone on a keyboard beating them. Uh,
Okay,
so,
so
so
let's pause for a little bit. Let's not get too ahead.
okay.
That first race with Alabama gang, what was your number and what track was it?
So the very first race I raced with them was Talladega. Uh, and I literally looked through their list of registered people, and the first number that was available was 68. Um, didn't know a whole lot of people that painted cars at the time, and I certainly wasn't any good at it. So I went to nnracing.net and I just typed in number 68 Cup car, and the first thing that popped up was probably the ugliest race car you've ever seen. It was sponsored. It was sponsored by Krispy Kreme. Um, and so it had a red number on the side, a green number on the roof, and then the paint scheme was literally a Krispy Kreme box. Like the car was white with green dots all over it.
Okay.
Um, it was hideous. Um, I drove it for a couple 3 weeks, and then I found a guy that painted me a Harley Davidson car with the same number, and that's what I ended up driving for a long time until I ended up joining an actual team, inside the league and having them paint me one.
Okay, so you mentioned the All Star race was your first win after the Open win. So how did the All Star race pan out? Like, how did you get to win that race? Because I think you said you dominated the Open race, correct?
Yeah, we dominated the Open, and so we only had about I think 11 people for the All Star race. There wasn't a whole lot of people that were winning, and I think they had like 4 or 5 people transfer from the Open over. So so one, it was a short field, or a small field, so that helped. But just I had a lot of speed. I was running top two or three most of the night, and we had a rule in place. We had an admin sitting out that didn't qualify for the event, so he was just sitting there watching. Well, they completely got rid of pit road speed, so you would just go as hard as you could, kind of like how they do on the old All Star qualifying. You would just go as fast as you could down pit road, get to your pit stall, and take off. And I don't know what I did, but not having to slow down a whole lot on the straightaway trying to get down pit road and being able to just break in a straight line on pit road itself really helped me not lose a lot of time. Um, and just, people were, I remember I was racing, his name was, I can't remember his last name. His first name was Tom, but we were, we were probably within a second of each other. And on the last pit stop, he ended up overshooting the entry a little bit and got just a little bit on the grass, and he lost a lot of time. I don't know if he spun out or blew by his pit stall or what, but that was enough to get me comfortably in the lead, and then I just had to hold on to the race from there.
Hmm. Okay, interesting. Um, so you mentioned Alabama gang, and then the merger league was what was it called again?
Team Norca.
Team NORCA.
Yep.
Okay,
It was, I forget what it stands for. It was like North.
Northern something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something. Yeah,
Northern Online Racing Car Association. Probably is
probably.
probably what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Um, so did you run 68 over there too?
Yes. Most of my online career, I've run 68. There's been a few instances here and there that I changed. I think the first time I changed was probably my third or fourth year at Sky Racing, which was after Norca. Um, but but yeah, 68 was kind of my number, and it was also one of those things. It's like we're with the open servers still being a thing back then. It's like if you had a popular number and you joined, you know, open speedway or high grip wreckers or whatever, a lot of times you got put in a 3-digit card because someone was already in there with your number. So I wanted a number that wasn't a popular choice, that way I was in my car, I know they couldn't see it unless they had it downloaded or something like that, but you know how it is. It's like you want to be in your car. You don't want to be in a generic. So
Yeah, yeah, totally. So 68 was your number. When were you able to make the switch to wheel, or did you try controller at all beforehand?
So I never did try controller. Shortly after Team Norco went to the hardcore mode, um, I ended up getting a wheel, and I didn't have a lot of money. I was at that point I was 18, 19 years old, going to college, and working at a Subway, part time. So didn't have a lot of money, and I ended up buying a wheel from a guy, and he had rigged it just all kinds of crazy ways. I remember the pedals were like strapped to a piece of wood. Um, I don't even remember what kind of wheel it was, but it was an old junk wheel. It had like a maybe 240 degrees of rotation total. Uh, and I tried it and just could not get used to it. So I threw it in the closet and stuck with the keyboard for a few months, and then finally got enough money saved up and bought a Momo wheel and really started practicing with that. Uh, and once I felt that I was comparative enough to how I was racing with the keyboard, I've decided to make the switch, and I've been on the steering wheel ever since. So
How much did a Momo go for back then?
I bought it used at the local GameStop for $70.
Okay.
Um, I I think the normal price was like 120 or something like that. Um, I, I don't remember it quite off my head, but they told me that a guy had bought it, had it for like 2 or 3 days, and then traded it back in. And so I ended up getting it essentially a
That's
brand
a
new wheel.
steal for 3 days of use. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and I mean, I had that wheel for a long time, up until I got my I guess it was a G27. Um,
You still running the
a lot of good. What's that?
Are you still running the G27 now?
No, I got the G29 now. I still have my G27, but one of my wonderful cats chewed through the wires. Um, I tried repairing it, and it works, but it glitches out sometimes. So so I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna. I'll just leave that in the closet, and maybe I might try to find a harness or something for it down the road, and just swap the internals out or something. Um, but we'll stick with the G29. I like the 27 way more than I do the 29, but the 29 it it gets the job done, I guess. So
Yeah, I mean, this is actually my oh second G29, and I had a 920 before. And I remember when I took one of my long breaks, and at the time I was like, well, I'm probably not going to race again. And
mhm.
so I sold my 920 to somebody used, so I didn't have a wheel at all. And then I switched to the 29 because I was like, well, it works on PC still, and I get like 6 more buttons. So for the sake of open setup, I was like, I want all those extra buttons so I can just have everything on the wheel. So it's
Yeah,
very useful for mapping. If you're doing open setup, use like anti-micro or joy to key, and you can map like all your F keys to all the buttons, and then I map the arrow keys to the buttons as well, so I can do everything through the wheel. I don't have to reach over to the keyboard at all.
that's good. I haven't messed with that, so anytime I'm doing an open setup or having to change out my tires or something like that, I'm having to click over to the keyboard. And some tracks that's a little difficult to do. It's like you either want to do it under yellow or find you a long straightaway most of the time. So,
Yeah, I would
but
say.
maybe I should probably look into that and make life a lot easier.
Yeah, I would say the tire pressures, especially if you're moving around trying to do like 4 tire pressures, like you need the long straightaway, because even though I have the keys on the wheel, I still find myself like getting distracted. So they help a little bit, but they're better off doing it under yellow.
Yeah.
So with the Momo, you were gonna say something about with the Momo. How long did it take you to get used to that?
So I practiced offline with the Momo and in some of the open servers and whatnot where it didn't really matter, if you did good or bad. Um, I practiced it probably for a couple 3 months before I actually went into a league race with it, um, because I was in that mindset. When I first started messing with the Momo, I had assist on pretty high, and I wanted to get to a point to where I didn't have any assist. You know, I was like, I relied on assist with the keyboard for so many years. And granted, I've had a lot of success with it, won championships, races, all that stuff. It's like, but we're in the next step now. If I got a wheel, I want to get to a point where I don't have to rely on that anymore. And so once I was comfortable enough to run with either no assist or just very, very small amount, uh, that was when I decided to make my debut with it. And there were still some growing pains. League racing's a lot different than practicing by yourself or with AI, um, or with people that you don't even know in an open server. Uh, so, but after a couple months, we started running back up front and clicking off wins and whatnot. And the rest is history. So,
All right. Yeah. So, what do you remember? What linearity you used with the Momo, or what linearity you run now?
um, what do I run? I don't even know, to be honest. Um, we can go check real quick. Uh,
Because I know
let's see.
steering linearity. It matters so much more than I think a lot of people realize. Like a lot of people, they're dead set on 100. But if you're not running a lot of degrees or rotations, it's not really a good idea, because it's like razor precise at
Mhm.
that point.
Yeah. Um, it it looks like I'm sitting at 100 right now, which for 240 degrees of rotation, it is very precise. and there's been times it's bit me in the butt, but it's kind of what I'm used to now. So, um,
Yeah, right
when I
on.
was younger, when I was younger, I'd be more optimistic to change and try different things. But now I'm older, I'm kind of set in my ways. Um, so maybe down the road I may fiddle with it some, uh, but it works.
Yeah, I remember I run 53%. I think we've talked about it a little bit. I know Jovan Anderson, I forget what Jovan runs now. He turned his degrees of rotation way up because of Tyler Mallon. But he used to run the same with me because we both switched to 53 when Taylor Morgans told us he was running 53%. But I remember I was doing practice for either, I think it was for Infineon, and I did a lap at my percentage. I had done a lot of laps. I was practicing, and I was like, what would this feel like at 100%? Because some people, they're like 100% or nothing. I tried it at 100%. I run 245 degrees rotation. I could not hold the wheel straight. The car was just twitching down the straightaway all the way. I was like, how do people drive like this? So, when you say it's precise, like it is precise. Like you cannot move the wheel even like a tenth of an inch without getting some input out of it. So, all power to you on riding 100% at 240 degrees because I can't do it. I lose I think I lost like half a second on Infineon running it at 100, which still a really fast lap compared to a lot of people that struggle with road courses. But I was like, yeah, I'm not running 100%. I'm setting my ways too with the 53% and whatnot.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see, if I mess with it, if I gain any time at certain tracks and whatnot. But usually I'm pretty fast uh with what I got, and I don't know. We may mess with it down the road. We'll see.
So you were very young when you joined Alabama Gang, those other leagues, etc. Would you say there was anybody in an Alabama game, a gang, or a Team NORCA that you could say was like your first mentor?
Probably not in those two leagues. I would say the league after that. It was called Sky Racing. It was Southern Kentucky is what the Sky stood for.
Okay.
Um, and made a lot of really good friends there, people I met in person and whatnot. And I would say my first real mentor was a guy named Buck Simmons. He was an older gentleman. Um, he kind of took me under his wing. That was shortly after I got my first wheel. And so he started getting me a lot of tips and tricks and whatnot. And he was he raced in real life, um, you know, before his injury. He used to drag race, and he lost his right leg in a drag racing crash. So I met him. Um, it was probably 2006 or so, 2007 maybe. Um, and it was really cool to see his setup because he had to use his left foot, for acceleration and brake, and he would use he just had the two pedal system, but he would use the brake pedal as the gas and the gas as the brake. Um,
Okay. Interesting.
and yeah, he said the reason he did it is because he had a contraption on his car uh, that they had built, and it was the same orientation on his personal vehicle, so he had just gotten used to it. Um, and that was actually the first time I changed numbers. He raced the number 41, and I changed to the 34. Uh, and while we were teammates, that's the car number I drove, and learned a ton from him. Still wish he was here today. He passed away from a heart attack probably around 2015 or so. Um, but he was an inspiration, and seeing what he had to overcome, you know physically, uh, and to be as fast as he was, and win as many races and championships that he did, to be able to follow in his footsteps and learn from him, was a real honor.
Oh, he's resting in peace now, Buck. that's a cool story to hear. We've had a few people uh in the community, with similar circumstances, such as Robbie Nisus, another resting in peace now for about almost a year now. And then Rod Weston, who's in Vermont, I believe. I don't believe he has use of either leg, or I think he's an amputee for both legs, and he has like a full hand system that he uses, and he's pretty competitive. So it's really cool to hear. The community has had like a lot of guys that have been through a lot of hardship, but they still overcome, and they find the way to be successful, even if it's just a sim racing game. And also to hear that he like took you under his wing is like pretty inspiring, as you said.
Yeah, yeah. It was a great time to be part of that community. And everyone at that league was really close knit. A lot of them lived up in Kentucky, and we would back when Kentucky just had the Xfinity race up there, or Busch Series back then. We'd meet up every year, um, have big cookout before the race. And I don't know if you've ever been to Kentucky Speedway, but traffic's horrible. So
I've
so once the
heard.
races,
I've
so
heard.
once the race, yeah, once the race is over, you might as well just pull the grill back out because you're not going anywhere for the next 4 or 5 hours. So I mean, we had a lot of good times up there, um, and whatnot. So
Yeah, I think it was the first year they had the cup race and they filled like the whole track up. I remember hearing that traffic was awful leaving
mhm.
and getting in. I think I remember hearing like some people couldn't even get in to see the race. They were just stuck
Yeah,
getting in the whole night.
yeah, I don't know if they've made any changes, but I mean, even we never went up there for the cup race, but for the Xfinity races, I mean, it was a nightmare. It's like it seemed like every year we went to, they had a unique winner. Like they had Stephen Light win one year, and then David Gilliland won one year, and he was driving like his dad's car or something like that. It was some unsponsored race car.
Yeah, I remember that
Um,
was that was the race where they saw a lot of teams saw him win in that like underfunded car, and they thought he was going to be the holy grail, so they brought him
right.
right up the cup, and then yeah, he wasn't that great in cup.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a funny how that panned out. But yeah, like you said, interesting winners for that racetrack. I mean, heck, we saw Cole Custer get a win there in Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a unique track, and still wish they went there. Racing may not be the best, but I don't know. Maybe the next gen would do good there. It's hard telling, but um, I think with all the bumps that are around that track, it makes it entertaining to say the least.
I feel like it could just end up being like a wider Kansas. I mean, that track's like a lot wider than Kansas, but similarly shaped. A little less banking, maybe the same banking. I want to say, I'm not sure, but I feel like if they went back with this car, they could have a really good race there for sure.
Hmm.
So here's an interesting question for you. So a lot of us we call you the Goose. So how did that nickname come about? Where did you get Goose or Goosecun from? Where did that come from?
To be honest, I'm not sure where it originated. Someone, I think it was back when I was in band back in high school. Um, I I played trombone, and I would just make the most horrendous noise on that trombone. Um, and someone told me I sounded like a dying goose, and
That's great.
so they started calling me Goose. And then I think some of my friends on the anime convention side started adding like a coon to it at one point, and so some people call me Goose, some people call me Goose Coon. Um, so more people call me Goose. The Goose Coon is just kind of a online, like a Discord or some online games or something like that. Um, but yeah, I believe that's where it originated at least. So
That's great. Um, so 2006, and so you said Sky Racing. Um, I've heard from Jovan Anderson, as you've sent him your like file archive and whatnot, that you ran some FTF back around I think 2013, 2014. I don't remember if you ran uh, in like 2016 or so or not. That's around the time I got into it. So, how did you get into FTF? And I believe there was a league. It ran under like another league, I think the year before or something. So, what was your experience like with those guys?
So that was really interesting because, you know, around around 2010 was when I took my first break. Um, I had been with Sky Racing, and I got burnt out is what happened. I was racing 6 nights a week. Um, and like at one point on Sundays, I was racing three different leagues on Sundays. I
Oof.
had a Sunday morning league that I raced with. Then there was a IndyCar league I raced with that happened around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we had our Sunday night league. Um, and so I was racing, 9, 10 different leagues a week, and I just got burnt out. I had to take a break. And first I tried, you know, backing it down to just one or two leagues, and I was still just over it. So I didn't touch the game for probably 2 or 3 years. And I don't remember exactly how the circumstances were, but when I come back, I started talking with it was basically the next generation of drivers. A whole bunch of these people I've never met before. They were 5, 6, 7, 8 years younger than me. Um, and so I started racing at the Saturday Night Super Speedway League, or SNSL. That kind of got me into the people at Open Speedway and FTF and whatnot. And so when I started opening back up, just started racing with them more and more, and met a lot of cool guys there. Some hotheads, some people that were real laid back. It's just kind of and seeing, especially with like FTF, just the level of competition that was there. There was a lot of big names. That made it to iRacing and the Pro Series and stuff like that. Um, and to be able to race with them door to door and all that stuff. And I still feel like after that break, you know, it's I feel like either the competition got way better while I was gone, or I just never quite got back to my level, that I was at. Because there was a lot of frustrating times uh, racing, where I was just racing over my head, or just making dumb moves and whatnot. Um, and but all in all, had some fun. Didn't have the success going against those guys like I was used to. Um, but winning's not everything. It's a lot of things, but it's not everything. So enjoyed some of the friendships I made there. Um, Andrew, Ian, um, Derek, David, Kevin. I mean, the list goes on and on of all the people there uh, that I had you know was able to interact with and form relationships with.
Okay, cool. So you ran there 2013, 2014. Was there another break around that time after, or did you just.
Yeah, um, I got I think about 2015 or so. I took another break, and then I got a new job that worked night shifts, so um, there wasn't very much opportunity to race. Um, but I'd made good friends with before that first stop with Randall and Corbin and Daniel and a whole bunch of other guys over at RRL and what's now Fast and everything. And um, I guess it was about 2017 or 2018. Randall hit me up one night, asked if I wanted to start racing again. And at that point, work schedule changed to where I had at least one or two open nights. I could hop in and mess around and stuff. And so that's pretty much what I've been doing since then is racing it fast. Race a little bit at BSR when I can. Schedules are still a little wonky, um, but yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing about the last 5 or 6 years. Uh, so
All right. Yeah, right on. So over all of these years, who would you say was the first person you butted heads with?
probably the first person I genuinely butted heads with. Um, it probably would have been at NORCA. I know Mr. I don't know what his real name was. He went by Mr. Milk, but we were fast, and uh, we were battling for the championship, and he took offense that I beat him. You know, basically using assist. That was still when I was on a keyboard, um, and he was not happy about it, and I understand. It's like in his eyes, he's like the computer's doing the driving for you. Um, I would say it's a little more to it than that, um, but to each their own. So that was the first person I really butted heads with, and you know, I raced with him a couple more times. Once I got my steering wheel, after they changed to the hardcore mode. But he never would say anything to me or anything like that. And shortly after that, the league folded because there wasn't a lot of people back then that wanted to race hardcore mode. Because I mean, they went full hardcore mode where you had to be stuck in the cockpit. You couldn't change your camera view or anything like that. Um, so it was sad to see that league go because there was a lot of good guys there that I did enjoy being around with that I was never able to link back up with. I don't know if they just stopped racing altogether or what the deal was, or if they were just avoiding me. I don't know, but um, it's one of those things. It can take one person to paint a picture of you, and then everyone sees it that way. Um, so that was probably the worst one. Um, I wouldn't say butted heads, but had a good rivalry with Maverick Morrow.
Okay, I
Um,
remember
we,
Maverick. Yeah.
yeah, we were both really fast, and if 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 he beat me, I was pissed. I don't know if he felt the same way or not, but we had a good heated rivalry. I don't think we ever yelled at each other or anything like that because we raced each other really clean on the track, uh, but it was a really good rivalry there. And the thing of it was is that we were teammates on top of that, so it's like we had to try to look out for each other, but also, yeah, I wanted to beat him. He was one of the best over there at RRL, uh, and that was what I was aiming to beat. And so I took a lot of pride when I did get to beat him, even though it seemed like he got the upper end more times than not. So
Right on. Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Who was like a main rival? Because I know you and I are teammates now with Randall, and I feel like we're all like pretty good rivals. And anytime we go out there on track Sunday, um, I've been probably winning a lot more recently, but I remember in 2023 when I first came back to Fast, it was pretty much even between all three of us. So we've had a ton of great battles. I don't know if I feel like overly motivated or anything like that. Winning has kind of become dull. But if it comes down to a championship, I know for sure like I'm gonna be pissed if I don't beat one of y'all. So
yeah, and that's the thing. That's what's kind of been eating me because the last 3 years I've been in the running for the championship, and I mean last year was a heartbreaker. It's
oh,
like
real 2 inches.
it's like man, it's like I knew I was going in there with Randall and Cody, and I mean Cody. To be honest, Cody had kind of been quiet in the playoffs, And so I was pretty confident going into Phoenix. Phoenix is definitely not my best track. It's actually probably one of my worst tracks. Um, and but I was still feeling pretty confident. And then we got about halfway through the race, and I mean Cody is all over me, and I was like, man, I really shouldn't have wrote Cody off. I know he's fast, and he's really shown up tonight. And I, I I wonder, there late at the end, I took tires, even though I was ahead of him. And at the time, I just felt like he had a better car, and I didn't think I could hold him off. So I wanted to. I felt much more comfortable being on the offensive than being on the defensive. And I mean, it was 2 inches. Uh, it's like I probably could have drove a little harder through 3 and 4, and I don't know if it had made a difference or not, but uh,
I
it was
remember.
definitely yeah, it was a heartbreak.
Yeah, and I
To
was I was right in the middle of that too, because I
Mhm.
remember I forget if I took rights only. I think I had taken rights only because something I don't remember exactly, but I feel like something had pushed me back like 2 spots, and I didn't want to be in the middle of the championship fight, but I was also running my half and half tribute scheme there to or rather thank you scheme to Tyler and Joven. So I really wanted to win that race in that paint scheme because I was like, I can't run it again. Like this is the one paint scheme
Mhm.
where like this is it. Like it's one chance and one chance only. So
Yeah.
I really wanted it, and I was like, I remember we went into 3 and 4 coming to the finish, and Cody was whispering in my ear. He was like, oh, let me get in, or like hurry up and go by, or something. And I was able to just like slide right up in front of him, and he got just enough more on the top that he was able to hold you off.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great race between all three of us, and I mean Randall was right there too. Um, I thought we were both. I thought me and Randall were both going around on that final restart because he drove it in so hard into turn one, and I thought he was going to hit me, but he slammed on the brakes, and it ended up ruining his chances because he lost so much momentum because of it. But uh, I thought there for a second that it was Cody's to win at that point because I thought both me and Randall were going to be backed into the wall. But but yeah, it's been a lot of good times racing. Um, Sometimes I wish the season wasn't so long.
Mm.
It's hard. It's hard making it every week, and I told the wife this year, like I think last year was like my last like real year, like making sure I make every single race, and racing because we missed out on a lot of different things last year, just making sure I was home. Um, and whatnot. And I tried. There was one week we were at a cabin, and I brought a laptop, and I tried to race on that laptop uh, on a really crappy Wi-Fi connection in the middle of the mountains, um, and it just didn't work out well. Um, so as long as I'm home, I'm there to race, but I'm not gonna try to plan things around it and everything like that. And um, you know, we got a we got a vacation later this year going to Japan, um, and that's going to be during the playoff time. So if I miss one race, I may still be in it, but there's a good chance I might miss 2 races.
Yeah, that takes
It
you right out.
and that takes you right out of it. So, um, but even if I'm not racing for a championship this year, I enjoy racing with everybody and just have fun with the competition and whatnot. So
And so we got Bristol tonight. But this podcast will go up tomorrow, obviously. So everybody listening, like we just basically, we'll have run Bristol the previous night. But so I was looking at our race from last year, which was in August at the end of the summer. I ended up winning that race, but what I forgot about that race was for pretty much the whole race, it's really hard to pass with the way the track is set up and the setup we have. So I remember I was third behind you and Joven. You were leading for like most of like the first third, and then there was one restart where we had all pit, and I was able to get to the inside of Joven, clear him for second, and then I was just like stuck behind you, couldn't find a way by you, and I think the clean air, helped you save your right front that tiny bit more because I started to fall a little bit, and we ended up having a couple more cautions, and we had like one caution, and we all pit. I stayed second, and then we had another caution, like I think maybe 10 laps after, 10, 15 laps after, and I want to say all of us pit for four, but Randall either he stayed out or he took two, and that let me get to your inside on the next restart around like 30 or so to go, and then Randall got up in the wall, or he got out of the line. He didn't have a good line through one and two, so I was able to shoot to his inside in three and four, and then I think we had a few more yellows, but I was just able to maintain the lead because we were just so like even. Like none of us were really getting around each other, and I think something happened to you at the end of that race because I don't even think you got second behind me. I think Cody ended up getting second. So tonight should be interesting because I can't qualify. Um, getting in the pole at
Yeah.
Chicagoland and the new rules and all, and that's why I was so annoyed last week because I got on the off strategy and I was like, man, like I got the pole, I can't qualify next week at Bristol, and I'm gonna have another non-top five night. And like at this point, it's like if I don't get a top five night, I'm just kind of a little disappointed because I feel like I can contend pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that feeling all too well. It's like if you're not in the top five, it's just you're like, man, it's like, why'd I even show up? It's like, because I mean, I know for me, it's like I show up every week. Then there's an exception here and there, but most of the time I show up, I feel like I have a chance to win. I think all of last year there was one race that I just couldn't get the hang of. I think that was Iowa. I just couldn't put a fast lap down. I couldn't be consistent for whatever reason. Um, but you know, makes you wonder sometimes. I'm like, because I like to believe in my ability and build confidence off of it and whatnot. And I remember that night. I think I still finished third or fourth or something like that. But I never felt like I had a shot to win um, at any point in time during that race. So
Yeah, that
uh,
was that
but
was another Wreckfest race that we had last year was Iowa. I think we had like three straight yellows towards the end of the race, and I had to hold off Trey Kinsey to get that one.
yeah. I mean, it's an interesting track, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it was the setup or the way I was driving it. I just couldn't get used to it, and never really got comfortable. So it doesn't happen often, but when when a week like that does come up, it sticks with you for a little while. So
Yeah, absolutely. A little more of a fun question. What is the dumbest thing you've ever done on track? Or one of the dumbest things? I mean, you got like 13 years of races to kind of probe through your mind here.
man, there's a lot, I'm sure.
Any intent
Luckily,
wrecking?
I've never actually intent wrecked somebody. Surprisingly, you know, I will say I like to be, known as a clean racer and whatnot, and um, take a lot of pride in it. So I've never actually intent wrecked anyone. Like I've shown displeasure, like in the pits or something like that after a wreck. I may roll up to them, kind of like Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch at Dover one year. But um, trying to think, there was man, I've forgotten more than I've can remember, to be honest. I remember one year we were at we were at Daytona, and this was back in the keyboard days. We had probably about 15 to 18 people racing, and we did back then we did single file restarts because double file wasn't a thing yet. But got a pretty good restart on the tri-oval, and went through turns 1 and 2, and I got to the inside of somebody. I can't remember who it was, but it's probably for third or fourth or so. And we got back around, um, heading to the tri-oval up to speed, and I was right on the yellow line, and the good old keyboard assist made my car hang a left like it was trying to go down pit road.
Oh no.
And yeah, I went sliding through the grass, came up, and took out probably 10th place on back. Uh,
Oof.
all by accident, of course, but uh, but yeah, that's the one that sticks out to me the most as far as just a dumb move. Even though I didn't mean to, it was still my fault for being that close to the line to begin with. Um, but other than that, I can't really think of a whole lot other than just us goofing around and practice and stuff like that. But as far as actual race goes, I can't really think of anything. So
Okay. Uh, what race win or championship means the most to you across your career?
I would say it was probably the one that means the most to me would probably be the last one I got at Sky Racing. It was my first year with the Momo wheel. And we followed the cup schedule. It was a 34 points paying race season, if I remember right. And I ended up winning 22 of the races that year. Um, didn't finish lower than eighth out of any of the races. Um, and it was just a dominating year. And um, I had we had a 5-car team. It was me, Steve, Corey, um, another Corey, and Mike. And I mean, we worked hard every week, together, practicing and stuff like that. And they helped me out a lot on like super speedways. If you got 5 cars on the line, it's hard for anyone else to beat you. Um, and so they helped out a lot with those at least, and had a good time with them, and to be able to hang out with them, in person 2 or 3 times a year. Um, you know, uh, is a lot of good memories back then, and to be able to get a championship over there was really nice. I enjoyed it a lot, and I was in my early 20s at that point, uh, so still impressionable and remember a lot of good things from them. So
Right on, right on. Yeah, really, really cool. Uh, to hear, that a championship so long ago, still means so much. Um, Obviously, I've only been around now for about 10 years, racing for probably about 8.5 out of those 10 years. So there's only really two championships that probably stick out to me right now. Um, One of those would be my first open setup championship, which came in 2018 at NNSCRA. And then I won a fixed setup championship in 2019, 2020. It was either 2019 or 2020 um, at IMRC. And that one was playoff format, and that was against Chris Wetz, Joven, and Dylan Poteet. And Poteet blew up, and then Joven got sent to the back by a Warpy lap car. So it
oh
came
no.
down to a 2-3 lap shootout between me and Chris Wetz, and I about gave it away on the last lap in 1 and 2, clipping the apron. But I just held the low line and was able to get through 3 and 4 good enough to where I slid up in front of Wetz. Wetz went low, and just wasn't enough momentum for him to get to me at the line. So that was a really big championship for me because I was the underdog going into that race.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it sounds like it was a good fight there at the end. And those are good guys to race against too. I know of them, or I think I've raced with Chris and Joven, obviously, and I know of Poteet, um,
yeah,
but
Poteet's
yeah,
very good. He doesn't race a lot on NR really anymore, but he's a very talented driver. Okay, here's a good fun question for you. This will maybe again probably be a harder question because we're talking 22 years here of NR. What is your favorite mod, favorite track, your favorite league to race at? Whether you can go any league that you've raced at because you really only race at two leagues now, and then favorite physics type.
um, I'll start with the physics type. Cup is definitely my favorite physics. Having to, especially with the OG tracks and the grip levels and stuff like that, learning to be fast for a whole run, and try to conserve the tires and stuff like that. There's just nothing more satisfying to me, at least. It's like, yeah, pack racing's great, trying to set up people for passes is awesome. It's like, but having to fight the track and fight the tire wear and, you know, be fast while doing it, uh, you know, brings the most happiness to me. Like it when you're at the end of the field run and you've seen that you pulled 3 or 4 seconds away from the next guy closest to you, it really puts a smile on my face. It's like, man, I'm in the game, I'm doing this and kicking ass. Um, as far as tracks go, um, I would say Nashville, to be honest, is probably one of my favorites.
Super
I've had a
Speedway.
lot of success there. Yeah, and and I don't know what it is with the one that we run over at Fast, um, but I've been really fast there the past few times we've been there. Um, um, and it's like most people have to run the middle or the top, and I got figured out where I can rip the bottom and pass people for whatever reason. I don't know what the deal is, but really taking a liking to that track. Um, as far as mods go, I would say, even though I never got to run the cup mod of it, it was always CTS. But the old NWS 11, uh, with the old Monte Carlos and Challengers and Mustangs and all that stuff was really fun. We raced that a lot of SNSL, um, but just always loved the look of the cars in that mod. Um, was there any other part to that question that I missed?
Favorite league.
Favorite league? Um, I would say as far as friendships go, my favorite was Sky Racing. If we're going purely on competition standpoint, like FTF was just on another level. I mean, I had I had one race where I finished second, to Tom Sylvain. Um, but I mean, everyone in that league just about is like, in the Hall of Fame of, in our 2003 greats. Um, and I still remember, the first race of the year, they'd spend a month having to do elimination races just to figure out the top 40, for the 500.
Mhm.
Because they'd have like 140, 150 people show up, and so it was really good from competition, but it was also there's a lot of egos there. So um, yeah, it was interesting to say the least. Uh,
Yeah, I think on iRacing
and
now, they're on iRacing now, and I believe they have a cup and they have an Xfinity series. I don't know if they have a trucks too or not, but I know they have at least cup and Xfinity because last year David Shieldhouse was running their Xfinity series full time, and I would see like him and a few other guys I knew from NR running that series, and like that was their full time series. Like they were not. they were like, however they have the licensing in that league now, they were not at the level to run Cup full time. Like Cup full time was like Brandon Hawkin, uh, Parker White is a new name that's been racing over there. He's been winning a lot at FTF, and he just won the ECOC championship last year. So he's like probably one of the best NASCAR guys on iRacing right now. But like it's just crazy. Like you had all like David was really good on NR, but he was only he's in the second tier series on iRacing. So it just shows you how much talent they have now on the iRacing side. They used to have all that talent on the NR side, and then this slowly everyone just started going to iRacing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I've dabbled in iRacing some. It's like, but there's a lot of monetary commitments you got to make. You got the monthly subscription, and then you got the cars and the tracks and all that stuff. And then to be good, you got to put a ton of time, especially if it's an open setup. You got to work and work and work. And when you get up there to the big leagues, it's like some of these guys, have a team, that works on the setup for them, and you know, I'm nearing 40 years old now. I don't have time. It's like the little bit I do dabble in iRacing, I do like it. It's like, but I know I probably, unless it's like a fixed setup league, I'm just not going to have time to really mess with it, to the point that I want to, and be successful, because I don't want to show up and run 20th, uh, week to week. So, maybe on down the road, might look into maybe joining a league over there or whatnot. But I enjoy the racing at NR. I enjoy the guys at NR, um, and it's a lot more laid back. Um, I can show up 30 minutes, before the league race, and be competitive. So
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I feel the same way. It's just kind of gotten to the peak now for NR for myself. And it's just like when people like try to tell me like, oh, you should try iRacing again, and I'm just kind of like, I don't have the time for that, man. I don't have the time to want to spend racing every night to figure it out. I've got my writing stuff that I'm trying to do on the side that I like continue to kind of procrastinate at the current moment. Um, and it's like if I want to focus on that, like eventually I'll have to focus on that again for 6 nights a week. So I just don't have time to race every night of the week. I can't put my full focus really into sim racing anymore. It's kind of becoming a weekend thing.
yeah, totally understand that. So
Okay, so regarding sim racing and then real life encounters, you mentioned used to do a lot of stuff at Kentucky Speedway with the Sky Racing members. Um, Aside from that, what other like interactions have you kind of had, and what's like a special interaction you've had with some other community members?
um, so as far as like physical interactions, like I've met Randall, Coleman, Corbin Huffman, and Daniel Wilson, um, on two different occasions. We went to Richmond race one year, and then we went to Charlotte another year, uh, and really enjoyed both of those. Had a good time, and Charlotte was real fun because it was during the time that um, Michael Waltrip Racing was under the itchy arm scandal,
Oh yeah.
um, and so we got there, and they were having this huge fan day because at that point they already knew that they were pretty much done, and going to be closing. So we went. They had all their drivers there. Um,
It would have been
you know,
Truex, Boyer.
Truex, Boyer, was Mark. I don't know if Mark Martin was there yet. Vickers might have been there. Um, and so they were all signing autographs. They had the pit crew out there doing, practicing, and you could just fit. I mean, you were 7, 8 feet away from them, as they were doing the pit crew practice. And then 5 Hour Energy girls were there giving out gallons of 5 Hour Energy. It felt
Oh
like it
boy.
was like They were just giving boxes and boxes and boxes of it away. Um, and then you go into the merch store, and I mean, everything was like 75% off at least. I mean, you could get shirts for like $5, die cast for like $10. I mean, they were like trying to just get rid of everything. And so, I mean, we loaded up, got all kinds of stuff over there. And then we got to go to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Um, that was fun. But once we got to the iRacing simulator section, it's like we stopped checking out everything else because we were stuck there at the simulators for the next 2 hours, seeing who could get the best lap. Uh, but yeah, that was probably the best interaction we've had in person with some people. I met Joven and Jeffrey as well up there at Indianapolis last year. That was fun.
Yeah, the whole eclipse thing. Yeah, I remember seeing a
Mhm.
photo for that.
Yeah, but as far as just nonstop like action, it's like that Charlotte trip was fun. We went go karting, and I mean we were there for all the races. They had Xfinity Truck Cup. I think they had a what they called a better half dash, where like the wives of all these NASCAR drivers raced on the little Bandolero circuit. Um, and I think the Whelen Modifieds were even there too. I mean, there was like 5 or 6 races we watched that weekend. Um, so we had a really good time. And I went to I don't think I said it in this interview, but I went to the NASCAR Technical Institute. So I kind of grew up, or not grew up, but lived for a couple 3 years around that area. So it was nice to go back and see some people I used to work with and stuff like that while we were also down there. Um, so all in all, that was probably the best experience. So
Right on. Yeah, it sounds like you guys had a total blast. I got to meet a offline side community member 2 years ago in Jersey, and we were Kevin Touch is his name. He's got his own little like low caffeine energy drink called Middle Road Energy that you can get online at middleroadenergy.com. Love you, KT. We walked down the boardwalk, and this was like, this was end of July, and it was hot as hell, man. Like, it was hot as hell walking down this boardwalk. I mean, there was somewhat of a breeze, but boy, it was it hot. I remember like, man, I need water.
mm,
I grabbed the water, drank like the whole water as we were like walking back and forth, and then we had some ice cream, and I was on my merry way. I was driving down to Knoxville at the time. Um, I remember I was trying to see if I couldn't meet up with you, but you had stuff you were doing that weekend because I think Nashville was like another 3.5 hours west. I want to
mm.
say so. But I still had a great time down in Knoxville. It's a great area down there.
Yeah, it's a fun little town. I grew up most of my life there. We live in a small town, a little bit outside of it now, but I mean, we moved around a lot as a kid, and then I say about the time I started kindergarten is when we kind of settled down in Knoxville, and then I was there all the way till when I graduated high school. Um, and spent those few years in North Carolina, but then we come right back. So um, pretty much been here ever since. So
Oh, right on. I mean, that's gonna pretty much conclude our NR side. It takes up pretty much a majority of the show, but Josh, all the stories you told are very cool. The sky racing bit, especially the story with Buck, that'll stick with me. That was a very inspiring, cool story to hear about. So that'll move us to our miscellaneous topic, which is music, movies, TV shows, the works. And I know you are a Star Wars fan like myself. Um, and your wedding photo, you and your wife got to hold lightsabers up to each other. So how did that idea come about?
so luckily, the wife is also a Star Wars fan. We we've loved the Star Wars movies, and we came up to the idea that we wanted a Star Wars themed wedding, and so there was she actually did the edits to where with the lightsabers and the TIE fighters and all that stuff. in the sky. Um, but but yeah, it's like, the like all the bouquets that the girls were holding, the hilts were lightsaber hilts. Um, there's a picture with me, my brother, and my best man Ryan, and we're all wearing Star Wars helmets. Um,
Awesome.
and so like we had Kylo Ren, Darth Vader, and Boba Fett helmets. Um, and so there was all kinds of little small details in the wedding uh, that gave it the Star Wars theme. We didn't go like full blown, like, if you just saw it, and like, unless you're like really looking, you'd be like, oh, that's a Star Wars themed wedding. But we had a lot of little details in it to where, if you start looking around, you would definitely notice it. Um, and it was the perfect wedding. I mean, we wanted something small. We got a cabin up in the mountains in Gatlinburg, and had about 20 people there, and it was just perfect. I mean, um, the backdrop of the mountains and everything like that, and the weather was nice. Um, we even had a black bear visit at one point over the weekend. So it was a very good, enjoyable time. Uh, and and yeah, so
Was that the same time where you were trying to race on a laptop up in the mountains, or was that a different time?
that was a different time. So that was the following year, on Memorial Day weekend. We got a cabin down in Bryson, North Carolina, and I I spent all week trying to get the laptop. It's an old laptop, um, set up to where it could run NASCAR and all that stuff, and I could never get the steering wheel to sync up. And I don't even know if there's a place to mount the steering wheel at the cabin. Um, so I just set it up for keyboard, and I wish I had kept my notes on uh, the steering assist numbers and all that stuff, because maybe I'd have done a little bit better. But I just kind of winged it on the percentages there, and just ran a few enough laps to get some points. And because I think there was an early wreck and a couple guys retired pretty early, so at least I didn't finish dead last. But um, I know I was fighting Randall in the championship, and he ended up winning that night, so he gained a lot. But we still ended up getting the overall championship there that year, so it was no biggie.
Right on, right on. Yeah. So out of the Star Wars trilogies, which is your favorite trilogy, and what's your favorite movie out of that said trilogy, or just like overall?
So probably for me, I probably like the prequels the best. Um, uh, just the very first one's the best. They're going against Darth Maul, um, and uh, so that one's always stuck with me. That was the first Star Wars I got to see in movie theaters. Um, so it kind of sticks out for me. Um, and is we actually the power went out during that movie, and then we all had to go pretty much hide under our seats because there was like a tornado warning or something going on outside. And so we had about a 30-minute window to where we had to hunker down. But luckily, the storm blew by, the power finally come back on, and they had to rewind the movie about 10-15 minutes for everybody. And and so it's always just kind of stuck in my head, because not only is it a good movie, but because of the events that happened during us watching it. So
That's funny. You mentioned the power going out because when I went to see Rogue One, I think it was 2016 or something that came out, 2017 maybe. But when I went to see Rogue One, there was a funny moment where they put the bag over the head of one of the protagonists, and it's just dark, and then
mhm.
you're like hearing voices, and then you're like waiting for the bag to come off the head, and the movie glitched or something. The projector glitched out like right as it was like that moment of darkness, so like you're just sitting there waiting like is the picture gonna come back? And then they turn the lights on, and they're like, we have had a problem. We'll give you a free ticket for the
Wow.
next movie. And I was like, damn. Like I had to just like find another date and go back
Right.
to watch the dang movie again. So that stunk, but kind of similar.
Yeah.
At least you got to finish it after the whole delay and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been back because I guess that was what 2001 when that 2000 or 2001. So I'd have been
99, I think, was the
oh
Phantom
wow.
Menace,
So
right?
yeah. So I was
Because I
probably
think,
13.
yeah, I think it was 99 for Phantom Menace, 2002 for Attack of the Clones, and then '05 was Revenge of the Sith. They had it in the 3 year increments.
Yeah. Yeah. Like my mom wasn't a big Star Wars fan, so it'd have been hard getting her to let us go back if we had to get a refund or something.
Yeah,
But
I want to say I saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters, but I have zero memory recollection of it. I just remember, and I still have them to this day. I had like the big DVD box set for the original trilogy that had like a whole disc of bonus features on it, and then I got the singular DVDs where back then the DVDs, you got like they had tons of bonus features on them and second disc and everything.
mhm.
They don't do the menu screens like they used to 20 years ago. Everything's more simplified, but that was
Yeah.
like the heyday of DVDs, was like kind of right when they came out, early 2000s. Any music interests for you, or TV shows?
Um, I mean, I'm I don't follow music a ton. Like I listen to a ton of podcasts, but when I do listen to music, I typically listen to rock or alternative or something like that. We got a playlist that we play. It's got all kinds of just random stuff. It can be anything from Journey to Godsmack. I mean, just whatever. Um, as far as TV shows, the wife and I are watching Outlander. Um, we're catching up on the last season of it. Of course, we got our criminal shows, like we watch Criminal Minds and um, just all kinds of stuff. I mean, we have a list, an ever growing list. It feels like, and I mean, we typically probably watch 8 to 10 hours a week of that list, but we keep adding stuff to it, so it never, even though we're taking chunks out of it, we just never seem to get to the end of it. Um, but then we watch our anime and stuff as well, and play video games and all that stuff. So we spend a lot of time doing stuff, um, but yeah, that's pretty much it on as far as that goes.
You got a favorite Star Wars video game at all?
Um, I'd say the one that I probably played the most was Knights of the Old Republic, the old MMO. Um, I actually bought the new one, um, not the new one that's really crappy, but the what's it called? Um, I don't even remember, but I haven't even touched it yet. I installed it on my PlayStation and then I just never played it. But yeah, as far as I say, Knights of the Old Republic is probably the one that I played the most. I probably have a couple hundred hours into it um, at one point in time, but I haven't touched it in probably over a decade. So
Gotcha. All right, Josh. Well, thanks a lot for your time here on Who's That Driver. Uh, you know, this is your moment right here. Feel free to shout out, any friends or family, uh, any NR people from over the years. Floor is yours.
okay, yeah. Like I'll say this real quick. There was one thing I wanted to bring up and never did, but
Okay, yeah,
there
go
was a
for it.
guy there was a guy at Sky that I become real good friends with. It was Steve Blankenship. He lives up there around Corbin. Uh, and this is a good little story. Um, so he called me up one day because his brother had something that was going on, and he's like, "Do you care to help me out?" He had a little front wheel drive race car. He raced at a little track called Rock Castle Speedway, a little bit north of Corbin. And so I drove up there, met him at a gas station, and rode with him up to Rock Castle. And I was helping him get in the car, and it was just like a testing tune, basically. They were going to be racing in a couple weeks, and wanted to make sure all the everything was working right on the car and everything. And so we get the car off the trailer, and it was a little Pontiac Sunfire. Had all kinds of stuff done to the engine and the front end suspension. I mean, the right front was cambered in like 15 degrees. It felt like um, big old racing slicks on them, but they had to like make a cut in the fender, so it wouldn't rub. But I remember him saying, he's like, in the trunk of the car should be my driving suit and my helmet. He's like, just get them out. And I was like, what? You just leave them in the race car? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. And so I go back there, and I get the racing suit, and I grab the helmet, and it was a black helmet, and I handed it to him, and he's like, that's the wrong helmet. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, that's my wife's helmet. He's like, my head won't fit on that. And I was like, well, it's the only helmet that's in the car. And he's like, uh-oh. So he tries to cram his head in this helmet, and it would not fit. Like, he's like, well, see if your head will fit in it. And I was like, I don't think it will. But we tried, and I mean, it hurt. But I got this helmet on. And he's like, well, I guess you're driving the car today. And I'd never been in an actual race car, and so here I am putting this race suit on this, and Steve's like 6'6", so this racing suit was huge on me. And but I get in it, and I get in the car, and do a few laps, and I was like, are there like adjustments you can do on this? And he's like, nothing major. He's like, we can do some air pressure or something like that, but that's it. And I was like, well, it's loose as hell. I was like, it's fine coming out of the turn, and it being front wheel drive. But I was like, going into the turn, it feels like the rear end's just on the ice. And we end up doing there's probably about 10 or 12 cars there, all in the same class. Well, the owner shows up to the pit area, and he's like, how about we do a mock race? And everyone was like, okay. And I'm just sitting there like, hell no, I don't want to do this. I got 8 laps in this car. And they end up doing a draw. Like, everyone was pulling numbers out of a hat, and I pull out number 2. I was like, don't put me on the front row. I was like, I'm not ready for this. So they let me go to the back. And we did about 4 or 5 races that day. They were all just little 10, 12, 15 lap races. Um, and it was so much fun. Uh, and I think the best I got up to second on one of the races. Um, but usually it was fourth or fifth. I did not want to start near the front. I always started in the back. And we finally got done, get the car loaded up, and it's like, man, you got some really good speed. He's like, I didn't tell you this, but he's like, those tires that are on that car were from last season. And he's like, did you look at the back to see? He's like, I know why the back end was on ice. And I looked, and you just see cords sticking through the rear tires. And I
Oh
was like, well, no
man.
wonder. I was on metal, not freaking rubber. So he's like, yeah. He's like, if we had a new set of tires on there, you probably would have blown all their doors off. Um, and so that was my one and only time in a race car. Um, so it was a fun little time. Um, Unfortunately, about 6 months later, his brother was racing that car and completely totaled it. I
Oh,
mean, he was going around the outside of someone, and I think the person on the inside of him lost the right front tire. He bounced into their door basically, and right off of turn 4 is the guardrail to go to the pit area. Really bad location, but he hit that guardrail, and it bumped it off the latch, and so the right front spindle and everything just got ripped off when it hit the wall.
damn.
Um, but it was a fun little car, and great little experience I got to enjoy that I would not have had it not been for NR and meeting the people.
That
Um,
that's really cool. And a funny thing about the whole ball tires thing and everything is there was I forget which podcast it was, but they just had this episode like this year. It might have been Door Bumper Clear. But Tommy Baldwin was talking about I think it's because they had Ryan Blaney on. Actually, they were talking to Blaney about the first time he got in a cup car, and they were at like some little short track testing, and at the time it was Dave Blaney and somebody else tested, and like Dave went out second and was like a couple tenths off on older tires. And then Ryan got in the car for shits and giggles, and Ryan was faster than Dave on even older tires. And Tommy looked at Dave and said, "You're out." And Dave was like, "What the hell?" or something like that. So yeah, it's funny hearing you say, that just shows you like how much talent really factors in, because you were on ice, and you were finishing top 5 and second at one point, even if it's like a small 12-15 car field, the short tracks. So it's hard to move your way forward. So it's funny how talent works like that. And yeah, like he said, if you guys had like new tires on there, or even if the rears weren't crap, you probably would have blown their doors off.
Yeah Oh, what could have been.
But yeah, that's a really cool story. I'm glad you told it here at the end. And yeah, I guess unless you've got another story you'd like to tell, the floor is yours.
All right. Yeah, I think that's about it. First, I want to say hi to my lovely wife. She's always by my side, and she supports me racing and lets me race. I feel like we, especially last year, sacrificed a lot of things that we, really wanted to do just so I could be home on Sunday nights and race. So I appreciate her for all she does. Say hi to my brother. He had a small stint in NR at one point. He never really got any accolades from it, but he enjoyed it the little bit that he did it with me. And then say hi to Ryan and my family, and all my NR buddies, you, Joven, Randall, just name a few, Jeffrey, all of them good. Enjoy hanging out with everybody and racing with them when I can. So I guess that's about it. So
All right, yeah, thanks, Josh. And yeah, I can't wait to get Randall on the show, because like yourself, been around a long time, has like a lot of stories he can tell. He was telling me a few stories the other night, and I was thinking, oh man, stop, save him for later.
yeah.
Like I want this to be recorded. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely I totally wanted to have you on this, and I'm glad we were able to do it so soon here in the early going. And I'm looking forward to all the people I can get to have on here in the coming episodes. So thanks again to Joshua Moyers here, aka Goose, however you call him. And I'm Zach Rogers, your host. Thanks for listening to Who's That Driver, and I will see you guys next week for episode 5.